Let's bring in right now former communication director for President George W. Bush, Nicole Wallace. Nicole, obviously we just got finished talking to Mark McKinnon. We certainly hope that we can speak to somebody in the Obama administration, but for obvious reasons, they're not putting them out. But this is really something that a battle that began under Bill Clinton, obviously intensified under your former boss, and continues under Barack Obama. But what we've just been talking about, what a remarkable moment it is for all Americans.
Right, and you can't, I mean, two thoughts. It's not a political moment in any sense, but you cannot take away from the commander-in-chief the role that he played in this. It's a tremendous accomplishment. I can't imagine another moment matching this one in his presidency. And you can't understate the impact that the hunt for bin Laden has on a White House staff. It is one of those things that keeps you up on night. And the wound that 9/11 left on the Bush administration and everyone that served under President Bush, it goes a long way toward making all the steps that were taken, all the controversies that were started. You debate things on this show every morning that are part of that wound that took place on 9/11. Absolutely. Almost every political debate in this country, all of our political scar tissue in this country has its roots on 9/11.
My favorite column during the 2008 election was a column by Maureen Dowd, who said, you never really know how a candidate is going to govern as president, because you never know what issues are going to occur during his or her presidency that will shape that presidency. George W. Bush's 7.5 years of George W. Bush's presidency were shaped by Osama bin Laden. He has shaped this decade more than anybody, living or dead. And he has shaped this new century the same way. And last night we closed a chapter on Osama bin Laden.
That's right, and you think about, I know you were down at Ground Zero, and we all as a White House staff met people like Stephanie Dunn, who was pregnant in 9/11. She lost her husband in the Pentagon. We all know these stories. We have them memorized. We've seen the families of those who perished on Flight 93. These have become part of our story, and to have this have happened on any president's watch is tremendous. And I think that what Mark McKinnon said about President Bush's reaction is exactly right. I can't imagine he felt anything other than pure joy that this happened last night, that this happened without any loss of American life, and that we know so much so quickly about the heroics of the SEALs that went in.
Tom Brokaw is with us. Tom, we lived through this. I was in Pensacola, lived through this with Mika's coverage of Ground Zero, and obviously watching you day in and day out. Put this in perspective for us, if you can.
Well, I remember that morning saying on the air, this is a declaration of war on this country, and then wondering whether I've gone too far or not. But in fact, it has been a war, and it's not going to end just because we've killed this notorious, really international criminal, Osama bin Laden. There are so many other questions that still have to be resolved here. Based on everything that we've been hearing, is that he's not had command and control of al-Qaeda for some time. He has been an enormously important symbol, obviously, for this country. And the idea that he was killed in a firefight that went as well as it did is an enormous triumph for the American military operation and for the persistence of this White House to go find him and take him out. I'm struck, Nicole was just talking about the politics of it all, and you can't remove it entirely from that context. But here's a president who came into office as someone who had some real questions about his ability to be a commander-in-chief. And some of the most impressive things that he's done in the 2.5 years that he's been in office. First, a speech at the Nobel Peace Prize in which he laid out the Obama doctrine about when wars are necessary. The idea that he was going to keep troops in Afghanistan and go against his base in doing that. And then to run this operation out of the White House and have it go as well as it did. However else you feel about him, that's all to his credit and to this administration and to the efficiency of the military special ops people that are there and apparently the coordination with all the intelligence agencies.
And Mika, the intel community who has been battered and abused.
Absolutely.
It seems since the Church Commission, through 9/11, through getting it wrong on WMDs, through so many things, this was a remarkable success by an intel community that has been haunted by the events of the past 9.5 years.
And I don't think we can underestimate the morale boost this has for troops in Afghanistan, for troops dealing with the war on terror, who feel forgotten, who feel like their story isn't being covered, who feel like perhaps people have moved on. This connects us with them, and this makes us salute them every moment of this day.
And Mike, for moms and dads who've lost their kids, for soldiers and Marines who have lost their limbs, this is no substitute at all. But we even heard dads and moms saying last night, "This helps me sleep better."
Last night, our time, we had a handful of young Americans, probably no more than 12 or 15, on the ground inside Pakistan. And they killed a man who changed the way we live in this country, who had been hunted for 10 years. And Tom, you travel the country. The sense of the scars, the scabs that September 11th has left in this country, the feeling that we can't do anything the way we used to do it. We can't do what the greatest generation did. A lot of that, I think, may have been peeled off last night.
Well, I hope so. I think that the country needed this for whoever was in office. We needed a victory. I've been thinking all weekend, spring break is over, folks. We had the wedding last week. The Donald Trump foolishness has come to an end. We have really serious issues in this country, and we need to get on with them. In places like this, journalism across the country in newsrooms, as well as in the halls of Congress and at the White House. And this, it seems to me, is a breakpoint and a reminder of the seriousness of what still exists out there. Yeah. The issues that are intriguing to me, having spent a lot of time in Pakistan, they sure as hell knew where he was.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way they didn't know where he was.
This makes the case for going it alone. I mean, for all of Obama's talk about multilateralism, the United States of America went it alone in this operation.
And when they got Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, which was another operation that people have forgotten about by now, the CIA got that tip. But they brought in the PACs to share the glory of it and to give them some of the responsibility for it.
They worked with the ISI, driving through the streets of Kandahar. I know somebody that was on the raid, and our intelligence community, were full partners with the ISI. Right. Not so today. Not so in 2011.
For one thing, I have believed for a long time, the last thing the Pakistanis wanted to do was to capture Osama bin Laden, because they're terrified about what happens from the ground up. Right. It's a country of 175 million people. They make about $2 a day. A lot of them have been educated only in madrasas by mullahs who say the only way to have a worthy life is to join jihad against the United States. So we went in there and took him out on another sovereign country's turf. We've had very strained relations with them, especially in the last year or so. They have approved what happened so far, but we haven't heard from the Pakistani street yet. So this one is not yet over.
And we had a debate about this in the 2008 presidential campaign. I mean, this came up in 2008. So, you know, we've had this conversation as a country, and I think most people support what happened yesterday.
And certainly support what the president did and the courage that the president showed, making some tough decisions that I suspect were decisions he didn't even expect to make during the 2008 campaign over the past 2.5 years, and he should be commended for his courage. Speaking of courage, anybody that drives north of New York City and visits West Point, and I know we all have, cannot help but be moved by what you see the second you step onto that campus. I want to show you some scenes last night from West Point when this news broke. Cadets cheering and excited. And to get an idea of the scope of this, the length of this battle that Osama bin Laden launched on September 11th, 2001.